कभी तो आएगी।
60-70 साल पहले पूरा हिंदुस्तान गांवों में बसता था। 15-20 सालों में तकरीबन 50-55% इस देश का शहरों में है।
हमें आधुनिक अर्बन प्लानिंग पर बल देना पड़ेगा। हमें इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के नए ख्यालों को खोजना पड़ेगा। हमने सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, वेस्ट वाटर ट्रीटमेंट, इसके बिना कोई चारा नहीं है।
We really are struggling so hard with lack of affordable housing in this country, with providing a decent living environment to most of our population.
Two important aspects have to be dealt with. One is we must have clean cities and we must have safe cities.
मैं तो अब PPP की जगह पर PPPP 4P की बात कर रहा हूं। सिर्फ पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप नहीं, पीपल पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप, जनता को भी जोड़ना है।
जब कोई अपने गांव को छोड़ता है, शहर में जाता है, आधा परिवार गांव में रहता है। हमारे लिए सड़क, मोबाइल फोन, फ्लाईओवर सिर्फ उसलिए है कि भाई इन सड़कों पे, इन फ्लाईओवरों पे उन लोगों के सपने पूरे।
हम मान करके चलें कि अर्बनाइजेशन अब उसे रोने धोने का इश्यू न बनाए, उसे हम संकट न माने, क्यों न हम उसको शक्ति माने।
वो सुबह
Hello and welcome to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister. Today in the third show of our series, we have 10 policy initiatives that will enable the next Prime Minister to transform India's crumbling cities. These have been culled from recommendations made by a group of experts, and you can get all the details from our website thinkindia.in.com. Joining us in the studio are four of these distinguished contributors. Shailaja Chandra, distinguished civil servant and former Chief Secretary of Delhi. R. Jagannathan, Editor-in-Chief of Forbes India and FirstPost.com. And joining us on a satellite link from Mumbai are Jerry Rao, Chairman of Value and Budget Housing Corporation, a company committed to affordable housing, and TV Mohandas Pai, Chairman of the Manipal Group of Educational Institutions and an activist citizen of Bangalore. And with them is our very own Dheeraj Nair, who has anchored this project for Think India. We also have an audience in the studio, among whom are some people who have actively pitched in to the debate on Twitter and on our website. I would urge all of you to contribute to future editions on Twitter and our website, and we would be delighted to invite you to participate in the upcoming shows. So let's get on with our very first 2 points. The first point is a simple point of doubling the investment in urban infrastructure. Currently, we spend about 0.7% of our GDP on urban infrastructure. We say that in the next 5 to 7 years, this should go up to 1.1 to 1.4% of our GDP. And we have also suggested that if possible, funds could be directly transferred to the 50 top cities of the country and to have a unified Ministry of Urban Housing and Urban Affairs and Housing. Let me start with someone who's dealt with these issues in the government, Shailaja ji. How effective is this recommendation? How doable?
It's doable if we are able to raise resources. Resources will not just come by reassigning the budget, but clearly it is a felt need for two reasons. One is that cities are your wealth. A country is judged by its cities.
Right.
It's true that a lot goes on in the rural areas, but wealth development, growth is what lies in the cities.
Right.
We have not really had a very comprehensive plan towards the urbanization and the growth of population, both within the cities as well as in migration, is going to, in all the cities you can think of except Mumbai and perhaps Bengaluru, the figures tell me they will double their present population
Right.
by 31. In that case, we have to be ready for so many things, not just roads, sewage,
Right.
water supply, but also for the fact that people need opportunities, people need some way of innovating.
Right.
Cities have to provide that,
So-
and I think that money can be found by raising those resources
Yes,
in
and,
many ways.
and later on the show, we have specific recommendations on how cities can do that. Jaggi, transferring money directly to 50 top cities, good idea, but somehow looking at the kind of turf wars that we have in the government, is that possible?
I think it's possible provided the terms are very lucrative for the cities and the states to look at it.
When you say
Now,
lucrative?
what it means is like if the direct transfer of funds in these cases can be increased by the center giving a more what do you call favorable terms to the way it lends money or gives even a grant, then I think state politicians will fall in line because they are happy to take the funds.
And you could benchmark it
Absolutely.
to milestones that if you achieve this
Absolutely.
level, then you will get more funds. Is that workable?
It is workable because nothing succeeds like comparisons.
Right.
Some state does well, another state watches and said, oh, Maharashtra has done this, oh,
Right.
Gujarat has done this. It
Right.
works. Yes,
Right.
he's right.
Right. Dheeraj, sum it up for us.
No, absolutely. I think investing more in urban infrastructure is a must for India. I mean, you go to any city, we are far behind the world's best standards in any by any parameter you measure a city in. But of course, the direct transfer is a very good idea. For example, one of the suggestions we made is to give money for metros, the construction of metros in all
Yes.
the cities which have 1 million plus population, which is about 53.
Yes.
So if you give it for a particular project like metro, and the Delhi metro is a great example of how things have worked well,
Right.
I think state politicians, city politicians and citizens would be very happy to receive it.
Right. So let me bring in Mohandas Pai into this debate here. Mohandas, we are talking about direct transfer of resources to cities under an overall plan in which the urban investment can be doubled from the current 0.7 to about 1.5% of GDP. How to get that done?
Well, to get it done is very simple. Most cities have a professional tax. You allow the cities to collect and keep the professional tax. There is a land registration tax in most cities, and you allow the cities to keep 50%. And there is a vehicle registration tax for vehicles which are locally registered. You allow the city to keep 50%, and the balance 50% can go for the state. So you're going to give revenues which arise locally from people who use local infrastructure for local use, and this is a way to strengthen urban finances, which is very critical.
I now want to come to point number 2 on our agenda, and this, is a somewhat of, it sounds very simple, but yet there has been so much debate on this one issue, and this is simply double the floor space index in our cities so that our cities just go higher. If you will compare India to the rest of the world, our cities are just so flat. If we were to double and our buildings could go higher, the cost of infrastructure, the cost of housing, the cost of offices, everything would come down. But somewhere along the line, we've not been able to do this. Why?
For two reasons. One is that you're absolutely right. I think the world average is 10. We are somewhere at 4, and Mumbai is at 1. So you can imagine,
yes,
how badly we are.
Which is the most pressed city for space.
It is the most pressed city. But if you look at the Delhi example, everyone would say, why don't we go high rise? But the real difficulty in Delhi is water. You don't have water for the current population. So unless you plan for where this water is going to be regenerated, for which there are a lot of innovative ideas,
Right.
they need to be followed through. If there is a complete confirmation that water is available, electricity can be found, but water is a finite source which will have to come through Haryana and those. But if every city can find its water, if the land is available in the sense of it, the soil can take that kind of structural engineering, nothing like increasing the FSI and the FAR.
Jaggi?
Actually, the problem is fundamentally political. Most cities are ruled by rural elites who happen to be ministers. In my city, Mumbai, for example,
Right.
the urban development department comes right under the chief minister. You have a glorified mayor who has no powers, who probably does some ribbon cutting and nothing more than that.
Right.
So, if the urban administration is not in charge of the city, and so how are they going to do anything? So obviously what is happening is the rural politicians it makes no sense for them to increase FSI because they are all part of the land mafia that controls the city,
Right.
and where there is a lot of political wealth stuck in it. So
Right.
we have to change that power structure, and that's a critical challenge.
And let me get Mohandas Pai in here. So we are saying the next Prime Minister should be able to get this done. Is it easier said than done, or do you think that a firm leader would be able to sort of ram this one through?
Well, I think we need a firm leader in a state to ram it through. I think somebody made a remark about the rural versus urban. I think that's true. Our cities are the most disempowered part of this country as far as local empowerment is concerned. Villages are more local empowerment than our cities. In a city, a ward has about 40,000 voters for one representative. In a village, maybe 1,000 people send one representative. The revenue of the city is taken away and put into rural areas. They get nothing. They are not able to determine their own fate, and that's why they can't pass their own laws. So we need a law, Raghav, which will make sure that the city administration is in the hands of a set of people who are representatives of the citizens of that particular area. And if they're truly empowered, things like this FSI can easily be done.
Yes, Dheeraj, one is of course empowerment of cities, but I want to quickly come in. If the idea is limited to doubling FSI, because empowerment of cities is a larger issue, we'll talk about it. Can this be done by an executive order coming from right from the top?
Well, I mean, the Prime Minister can certainly give the lead. I mean, at least in Delhi maybe, and in a few other places.
In some of the union
in some of the
territories, for
union territories could give the lead, give the direction. I just find it odd, Raghav, how in India we wear as a sort of almost as a badge of honor that our real estate prices are the same as New York or London. I mean, this is nothing to be proud of. India is a much poorer country. We need to have much more affordable space, and so. And I think raising FSI is one simple way to do it.
Okay, let me get a quick audience poll here. When you compare Indian cities with, say, New York or Hong Kong or some of the other bigger cities of the world, you find that they are much higher, while our cities are much lower. Do you feel bad about it, or are you happier with lower cities? How many of us would want higher cities? I think, oh, all right. So I think there is a consensus here that we'd love to see higher, more modern cities. At this stage, we'll take a break. Stay right there. Log into our website, thinkindia.in.com, and contribute to this debate. Meanwhile, we will be back with the other points just after a short break. Welcome back to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister. And today we are looking at how the next Prime Minister can come in and he can save our crumbling cities by increasing the thrust to urbanization. In this segment, we are going to look at 3 points. Point numbers 3 and 4. And point number 3 is permit charter cities which run to separate rules without state government interference. So this is about empowering city administration. And related point is allow city agencies to raise their own finances, which will aid their empowerment. Now, these are 2 points which you can't argue with them, but they become difficult to do because of India's very tiered structure of central government, state government, and then local government. Let me pick this up with Mohandas Pai in Mumbai. You've alluded to this already. The issue is how to get it done, because there's going to be opposition to this move.
Well, there is going to be opposition. It is for the state government to do that. We have Lavasa, the example of Lavasa in Pune, which unfortunately got in trouble. That will be a great independent city when finally built. In Bangalore, we got the case of Electronic City done last year, which has become an independent place with its own corporation elected from all the people who work in Electronic City in Bangalore as an urban area. And I think we can do it because the law provides for it. What it requires, Raghav, is for the political leader to take a hard decision and say, in this area, I'm going to empower you to do that, and I'm going to charter you maybe by using a notified area mechanism or some other mechanism which is available under the law, and empower you to elect your own representative and manage your own affairs within the particular area. I mean, it can be done. The SEZs were supposed to be like that, please remember. But the SEZs got in trouble for various reasons.
Let me bring you in here. This whole ability to empower cities. For instance, the kind of road tax that you collect, you spend only on yourself. The kind of stamp duty you collect, you spend only on the city's own development rather than the state government taking it away for other areas. Practical?
In Delhi it is going on, it's always gone on.
But Delhi is a city-state in that
yes,
sense.
but it gets to keep everything it earns. That is how the progress has taken place, whatever people call progress. Yes.
Right, but in a state where,
In
like
a
say
state-
Maharashtra, where Mumbai is a small part of Maharashtra, but there's a large rural area outside of Mumbai.
There would have to be a clear policy directive at the level of the cabinet, this state cabinet headed by the chief minister. Absolutely, as Mr. Pai said, there is a tendency for rural-based politicians to siphon everything back to the rural areas. But I think there is a change now. Urban voters have become very important. We all know that. So I don't think it will be so easy now to say all the money would go back. But there's a related point. The municipalities today, under the Municipal Corporation Act of all these cities, they have many corporations, would have to be changed to allow for local decisions to be made, not on the total master planning, but on the local planning. Do you want to have schools here? Do you want to have mixed land use? Do you want to permit a hairdresser to be operating in a residential colony?
But isn't that already a function that the municipalities perform?
You see, in a place like Mumbai, yes. In a place like Delhi, no. Municipalities do not really. Everything comes under a master plan, spatial plan,
Right.
with the result that you are completely hamstrung. I think there is every case for doing both these things. One is to allow this kind of local planning, local thought, local participation, and very, very important to raise resources and to have a trade-off so that the resources you earn, you get, you're a good boy, you go ahead faster.
Jaggi, let me bring you in here. Now, there is this whole debate of, the most of the revenue for states comes from the larger cities. And there is a need to transfer resources to rural areas. Now, we can argue about the proportion on which this has got to be done. You can argue more of it goes to rural than it should. But can you really have such stiff, rigid laws? Will it work politically? I just want to see the implementability of this idea.
I think the problem is not that urban revenues are being siphoned into rural areas. Urban revenues, a substantial chunk is going into political pockets, which is not going to the rural area. So, I mean, if there was a direct transfer of, say, part of the surpluses generated in, say, Mumbai to rural areas, there would be genuine synergy between state and thing. Here the problem is you artificially restrict FSI so that builders and politicians can between them make tons of money. So the problem is one of the money going into the wrong pockets, not to rural areas.
Dheeraj, sum this up for us.
No, I think it's an interesting point Mr. Pai raised about Lavasa, a new city, for example, an independent city. So I think one thing the Prime Minister could do was to encourage the setting up of new cities. And as Shalija Chandra said earlier, nothing works like competition. So once you see new cities coming up with better facilities, then state governments will have an incentive also to give resources to their own cities, to the capital cities of their states.
And you can link central funding.
And link central funding to that. So, I mean, that's where the Prime Minister comes in. Give incentives to state politicians. At least the Prime Minister could make a start by at least getting people from his party or his coalition, his or her party or coalition to give independence to the city. So I think once it starts, there's a considerable demonstration effect which will take over.
Okay, let's move to point number 5, and this is again about public disclosure of all city government decisions. And this is something we've been talking about. It's a recurring theme in this series, that if you were to make everything transparent, put things out on a website, give a tracking mechanism for where all government decisions have reached, if they are stuck, why they are stuck, that will have a major improvement effect in getting things done by local officials. Jerry, you want to pick this point up about what just a forced transparency could do to improving governance in cities?
I think it could do a lot. Most of the rules of the peri-metropolitan areas, for instance, I will pick at random Thane Dombivli. There is no website which prescribes the rules for urban town planning there. We don't know what the rules are. There is no single manual. There are a variety of regulations over the past 50 years, and the copies are available only with a few people who become the required intermediaries for you to do anything. There is no clarity about where the roads will come, how they will be maintained. All of this can easily be put on a website. In fact, they can be put before the final decisions are taken, objections invited. So I think if we do that, we will automatically, for instance, in between, the Ministry of Environmental Affairs came up with one of their kind of slightly strange memos saying that you shouldn't build any housing unless you are so many kilometers from a fire station. Now, we do not know where the city is planning fire stations over the next 5 years.
So it's
and there is no way one can comply with this.
All right. All right, so let me bring the audience in here, and we've got professors from architecture institutes here as well. Would anyone have a point here on how we can improve the local governance in cities by just simply becoming fully transparent and putting things out on websites? Any input, any observation?
We are talking of e-governance already, and so we are moving towards transparency, and certainly it will improve, because the more knowledge that is there or information that is there in the public domain, certainly people can participate, use that information and improve
But how much of it do we have already?
We have a number of cities and number of states that have gone into e-governance.
Any other observation from the audience? Yes?
Not just that, in some of the states we already have some laws like guaranteed e-services. Like in Delhi we have that, in Rajasthan, in MP, in Bihar. So we already have that system that we can track all the services that the states are providing. So those can be tracked directly on the websites without any interference.
Those websites work? You can log on to them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, Dheeraj, this is a quick sum up, right? You can't go against this. There's nothing negative about this, right? So sum it up for us in 2
But as
lines.
you said before, the simpler the thing is, the harder it is to get done, because somehow the vested interests are so strong. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why we can't put up information on the website, and that is the one biggest source of the asymmetry of information between government authorities and citizens is a source of corruption, rent seeking, everything that's wrong with real estate, urbanization. So I think that's one very simple thing to do. And if the Prime Minister takes the lead and says this must be done,
Yes.
I think it should be done, and it'll really improve things very dramatically, probably more quickly than any of the other points on the agenda.
Absolutely. Make governance transparent. Well, at this stage, we will take a break. We will come back with more items on the agenda for the next Prime Minister. You go to our website, thinkindia.in.com, give your suggestions, and come right back after this break. Welcome back to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister. And today we are looking at urbanization and how India's crumbling cities can be not only repaired but can be enhanced. Point 6 is redevelop slums for low-cost housing. And point 7 is central and state public sector undertakings, also army and railways, are some of the largest owners of land. Divest this land via auctions to make much more land available for urbanization. Let me go across to our two experts in Mumbai. Let's start with you, Mohandas Pai, on points 6 and 7.
I would say that the slum development program that is in Bombay has done a reasonable progress, and a method like this should be done all over this country, and obviously it will work if you have the right method. Well, I think it must be done in a manner that you don't dislocate their economic activities for a long period of time, because they don't trust the government, they don't trust anybody. We have so many cases where people have been moved, the land has not been developed, and it has gone to the land mafia. So I think you must do it very carefully. I think Mumbai has done a reasonable amount of work from whatever I see in Mumbai every time I come here.
Right.
So a method whereby a part of the land is developed, you build maybe some temporary accommodation, put them there, then start shifting them, so the confidence has to come.
Right.
It can only come with talking to people and negotiating and treating them like human beings, not like chattel.
No, that's fine. That's fair. So you, and the second point you were making about surplus land.
Yeah, I'm saying surplus land, in all our cities we have the public sector undertakings, many of them sick, like ITI in Bangalore, HMT in Bangalore, and the not so sick BEL, which are huge amounts of land which are unused. Now they must be asked to auction the land, take the revenue, so that more land is released. The army has got huge amount of land in the heart of Bangalore,
Right.
Which is not being used. They can as well relocate outside.
Right.
The railways have got land,
Right.
and in Bombay, Jerry says the port trust has got land.
Right.
I think we must have a land use for the land belonging to central
Yeah.
government undertakings,
Right.
so that
So-
more land can be released in cities.
So, Jerry, what we were suggesting is that maybe all these government undertakings are literally forced to put all their land into a giant central government land bank. It could even be a listed corporation. And then as development of the land happens and monetization happens, in a sense, people who have contributed the land, organizations which have contributed the land, start getting their returns. Is that doable?
I'm not very optimistic. I think the problem really is the level of corruption and opacity. And it's kind of puzzling why some of this hasn't been done. Take Mumbai Port Trust. We have developed a major port, JNPT, on the mainland, and we should have gradually, started getting rid of the Mumbai Port Trust land by auction, by a transparent process, and we could have created a huge amount of land in the city. But for some reason, and both these ports are under the Ministry of Shipping, rather than do this, the Ministry of Shipping is actually increasing activity and putting up some new terminals and so on in Mumbai Port Trust, which is against their own stated policy of encouraging the other port. It seems to me there is something here that they don't want to get rid of, and they don't trust the auction process, so they are worried that somehow somebody, their opponent, or somebody will get advantage, somebody will. So I am very pessimistic that, although you may be saying this is the agenda for the new PM, that this can be pulled off. It would be ideal, but I don't know if it can be pulled off. As far as slums are concerned, I think Mohan is being too charitable to the Mumbai people. They haven't done such a great job. We just have again an extremely opaque, time-consuming process,
Jerry,
very susceptible.
Jerry, tell us how to get it done. So if it's not happening well, give us 1, 2, 3 things that can be done to get it back on rail and get going.
I certainly think Mumbai Port Trust as an example, and the number of public sector lands in Mumbai and in other cities can be auctioned.
Okay, fine. So
but it just puzzles me why
it just puzzles you why it's not. So solve the puzzle for us. Can the Prime Minister, these are all central government undertakings, these are not even state government, so you can't even talk about that the states are not cooperating. Port Trust, railways, army, can the Prime Minister lean heavily and get this done, release this land?
Raghav, excuse my using the expression, but all these are holy cows. A Prime Minister can only get it done by the cabinet agreeing, and if the cabinet is headed by coalition partners or ministers who bring a long song and drama as to why it can't be done, we can turn somersaults till the next elections are held. But having said that, let me say that if there is something, a return on this comes back, and it is done centrally, and it is done through a process where a corporation takes over everybody's land. Yes. So there is no pick and choose in that, and it is seen as something which is pro-growth, pro-development. I think a strong Prime Minister can sell this idea. It is worth doing it.
So this is something we've suggested, that just create a giant land corporation of India.
It's a good idea.
Move
it's a good idea because otherwise you have no land and you are allowing it to lie fallow with people setting up golf courses and things just to show utilization, which is really not fair when you want cities to grow.
And there's such a need for land. Jaggi.
Yeah, I think it can be done both at the central level and the state level. I think the NDA missed one opportunity when they forgot to privatize BPCL and HPCL. They are sitting on huge tracts of land, and one of the things that was said at that time was, if a private party buys this, most probably they'll shut down the refinery, move it somewhere else where it will be more economical.
But remember, they did that with VSNL. Exactly. In VSNL, they sequestered the land away and said, you get only the company, let the land stay in another company.
There are 3 very strongly polluting industries right in the middle of Bombay, which is the 2 refineries and the RCF. None of them has any business to be there because it's fully populated. You are waiting for the next Bhopal there. So it's logical to move the factories out somewhere else, and these land should be available. I think
National Textile Corporation in Bombay has done it very successfully. So you have examples within the government that can get it done. So Dheeraj, this looks like something a strong Prime Minister can get.
Yes, I think all it needs is a strong Prime Minister. I mean, at the end of the day, sure, there are coalition compulsions, sure, there are cabinet colleagues, but then this is about leadership, and show them return, offer them return when the land is auctioned and so on. But I think it just needs a person to just get heads together, get the cabinet together, get the army chief, get the railways, chairman of the railways board, get them all together and just tell them this has to be done. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this is cut and dried for the next Prime Minister to get this. Our point number 8 here is, instead of having prior approvals for converting land use change from agriculture to non-agriculture, why don't you have a situation where in peri-metropolitan areas, peri-urban areas like the National Capital Region of Delhi, you just say this should be automatic, pay the fee and get the land use change?
Unfortunately, it's not that easy. It is completely hidebound in the master plan. And to change anything in the master plan, to make any kind of reallocation, first it becomes a huge scam. Whether it is a scam or not, it is seen as a scam. But I think the DDA has made in Delhi a beginning by having land pooling. So in a way, you can give up and then get back about 40% of it, which is one way of doing. But certainly there is every need for converting this, but it needs to be done in a way that central government, state government, all the players, everybody knows what's happening. Your word about transparency, if everything, not just on a website, but every meeting, every file is open for public view, and there is a person who is all the time answering questions.
But if you make this automatic, if you say that there will be no discretion in this system at all, that if you are in this area and if you are an agricultural landowner and you want to convert to residential use, all you have to do is come up, pay the designated fee and get it done. There is no prior approval.
It would need a legal change, which
Yes.
is possible. It won't be an executive order.
Right.
But these legal changes don't take time. When there's a will, it can be done in 48 hours.
Do you think it will help?
Enormously, because you know, this kind of an idea, this kind of a myth that we need all our green lungs. You can have green lungs. Lutyens Delhi, which they're going to now develop into houses, is a huge lung. The ridge is a big lung. Much of this, you can have every square represented with green lung, followed by use of residential area.
Right.
So that you don't kill this. And agriculture in any case is, I mean, how much is agriculture contributing to Delhi? That you need to have
That you
this.
need to keep this
Yes.
thing. Okay, I'm running out of time on this segment. Mohandas Pai, one very quick input on this issue from your end. Can it be done? Should it be done?
I think it should be done. It should be automatic. That's what we recommended from BPAC 2 to the government of Karnataka. And I'm told the government of Karnataka is looking at amending a part of the law to make the process easier. But remember, Raghav, this is a heavy source of corruption.
Yes.
Everybody in the system, the revenue ministry, the revenue official, everybody makes money in conversion of land all across the country.
Right.
And now with the land acquisition bill passed by Jerry Rao, which does not tackle this issue, which does not empower the farmer to sell his land and to convert easily, we disempowers him. We go to see the rise of the gundas and the land consolidators who go to beat up the farmer, take away his land and work with the ministry or the corrupt officials and get it done.
Because
so
now
I
you-
think
now-
we have to pass the law to empower farmers.
Right. And now you even know under the new land acquisition law, you also know the rent that you can charge or the delta that is there. It's
Yes.
4 times and 2 times. So you
Yes.
know that. Well, these are tricky issues. They can be done if you get a strong leadership in place, which is not aligned with any of these special vested interests. We hope that will happen. We need to take a break at this stage. Stay right there. Go to our website, contribute to thinkindia.in.com and come back because we are going to tackle our last 2 points, which are very relevant to ordinary consumers. Stay right there. Welcome back to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister. And today we are talking urbanization. And we are down to our last segment with points 9 and 10. And I'll read them out for you. Point 9 is about eliminating stamp duty for small apartments which are less than 600 square feet. This will ensure that affordable housing will become even more affordable. And point number 10 is something that I'm sure a lot of people will agree with, that all cities in population where the population is above 1 million should have either elevated expressways or the metro. So let me start with Kush Kapoor here, who actually wrote into us on Twitter, I think.
Can we create a mechanism so that the private players and the government come together and can build affordable houses, as we see that there is a lot of migration happening in our country, so that the economically weaker sections and the lower income group are not able to get houses that
So you're
they badly
talking about
need.
public-private partnership in a big way to get affordable housing. We've got Jerry Rao there. I'll get Jerry in to answer that question because Jerry is doing something like that. But before we get Jerry in here, can we any more observations?
Rather than eliminating stamp duty like altogether, there can be mechanisms wherein we introduce differential taxation slabs,
Okay.
where people like who already have one house,
Okay.
they are charged. They
A
are
higher stamp duty
yeah,
for a
right.
second house and a
Right,
yes.
right.
Okay, fine. So differential taxation on having more than one house. Anybody else?
Just wanted to say that for affordable housing, the most important thing is the land availability. So if you don't have a land policy for urban areas, there's no way that we can get it.
We've just discussed how we
Yeah,
can
but-
make more land available.
Yeah, but that's the only one way.
Right.
The Land Acquisition Act is going to make housing very, very expensive for affordable segment.
Yes.
And the second point is that we don't have any policy for rental housing. a large number of people look for this option even in the lower and affordable range.
Right.
They don't own houses, so
Right.
there is no option at the moment which needs to be taken up.
Okay, let me go across to Jerry. Jerry, you are now deep in the business of affordable housing. Address all these concerns that you've just heard from people. Can we have differential stamp duties? Can we have will the land acquisition bill really increase the cost of affordable housing?
I think on stamp duty, clearly, if you're buying a 5 lakh home and your cost goes up by 10% to 550, that's a very much bigger amount than somebody who's buying a 1 crore home going up to 1 crore 10 in relative terms. So even if we don't go to zero, we should at least go to 1% or something, some nominal stamp duty, because we are proportionately increasing the cost for the lower segment, base of the pyramid segment, trying to enter the housing market. As far as PPP is concerned, sorry to be again a little pessimistic. It's very dangerous in India. We do not have the transparent systems and processes to make PPP work successfully. They will end up becoming crony capitalist excesses. So I am not in favor of encouraging PPP on a large scale until we have very robust processes. Yeah, leave it to the private sector, just create an empowering climate.
The fear expressed by the lady that the land acquisition law could make affordable housing very expensive, is that real?
It is absolutely real. What is really frightening is we don't even have the rules under the land acquisition law still published. So we don't know how much more complicated and how much more bizarre it can become, because most things that our government does are bizarre. So this is likely to be something that is very negative.
Yeah, so let me get Dheeraj in to sum this up for us. Dheeraj, this is going to be a hot potato for the Prime Minister because the land acquisition law is passed and is widely perceived to be very fair to farmers. So this is something he'll find very difficult to roll back.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult to roll back, but there is always the possibility, the midway possibility of amending certain things. Now, I don't think it's going to be easy to touch the price factors in it because it will be seen as anti-farmer. But there's a lot of permissions, clearances, other delaying and cost escalating factors, features of the bill, the fine print can be certainly amended, and I don't think anyone except vested interests will be unhappy with that. So I think there is room to at least bring some amendments to rationalize not the price bit of it, but the mechanics of it, which will raise costs. So I think that's certainly doable.
Right. And I've got very little time, but I'll come to you on the metro, something that you've handled yourself. Is it possible to get it across every 1 million plus city in the country? Is it a good idea?
No, right now I think we have about 51 million plus cities, and that will go up to about 81, 82, I think, by 2030, I understand. Now, we have metros coming up in 3 cities. They're already functioning in 3 cities. So let's say we have 6. Incrementally speaking, I don't think it's feasible, but definitely it is something you must give the option to the public to have at least one reliable public transport method. And nothing could be better than the metro. Right. But if BRTS can work in certain cities, and Ahmedabad, it is a runaway success.
That's right.
It should be also considered because large numbers of people get carried in no time.
Right.
But certainly the metro is the answer if one can do it in so many cities.
Jaggi, very last word on either affordable housing or metro, or both.
Affordable housing is largely a function of transport, because if you can stay far away and if you get quick transport, you can make land easy, cheap. So it's two things are linked. I think we should focus on creating new cities, and we should also, in many places, I think we need to discourage private transport so that public transport can be funded. I mean, like Singapore taxes cars.
That can be done in new cities because you will be building up the infrastructure from scratch.
Even old cities you can do that.
Well, so now there it is for you, Mr. Prime Minister. We've got quite a bunch of suggestions that have been thrown up here, and once you're in government, we will be happy to hand over these papers to you and see how many of these things you can get done. Thank you very much for being a wonderful audience today. So before we conclude, let's have a look at all the 10 points that can get urbanization kick-started for the new Prime Minister.